excellent evening so far. Happy Tuesday, happy Tuesday. So today, it has been a long time, but we have our next segment of Talk Story to Me, our author interview series. So I'm super excited. Oh my gosh. We're going to talk to Bonnie Quinn today. Oh. Okay, we're going to talk to author Bonnie Quinn today. I'm very excited, but also so nervous because she seems so freaking cool. And I'm like, oh god. I'm so excited. But as always before these, I am so incredibly nervous. But yeah, I'm so excited to get to talk to her about her books. So I'm excited. That will start very shortly. I did give her a heads up. I usually give people a few minutes to come in. So the official start time I said was 6, and I told her we'd probably start around like 6:05 so that people just had a minute to come on in. Sorry, I feel like I have not streamed in ages. I'm so sorry. I don't really know what happened. Well, actually, I have a guess of what happened. So last Thursday, I think I told you guys, I went to go visit my mom and speak at her elementary school. And that was really fun, and it all went well. And then Saturday, I was watching my niece and nephew, who are 7 and 4, and oh my god, do they have so much energy. So I finished Saturday night, and I was exhausted, but I kind of just chalked it up to that took a lot out of me. And then Sunday, I was a wreck. I was so exhausted. I was barely awake. Like, I was not feeling good. And then Monday also, I was like kind of starting to feel better, but like still pretty cruddy. So I was like, I'm just gonna go ahead and cancel stream so I can hopefully feel better. And I woke up this morning feeling so much better. So I don't know if I caught something while I was at my mom's school or what, but yeah. Stream Friday, that was recent? That's true. Music is a bit loud. Well, the music is about to stop because I see that she has joined the call. And I don't like to keep anyone waiting. So we are gonna go ahead and I'll do my intro thingies. Kids are sickness pits. All right. Let me do our super duper official intro now. Welcome to another episode of Talk Story to Me. I know it has been a while since the last one. Quite a few things in my real life have been going on. But we are finally returned today to talk with the absolutely incredible Bonnie Quinn, author of the How to Survive Camping series. I'm so excited. She seems so freaking cool. As always, also, I am very nervous, and I will try not to make a fool of myself, but no promises. But yeah, so let's go ahead and get started since I see that she's in the call. As always, everyone in chat is free to ask questions as long as they are respectful. But yeah, we're gonna ask her about all things writing, how she got started writing, her publication journey, and just about her writing process. I'm really excited to ask because I have so many questions. She handles things so skillfully with her writing, like she juggles so many things at once. So I'm excited to hear how she does it. All right. Hello. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes. Hello. Sorry, I was eating a snack.
Oh, no worries at all. Sorry, I should have given you a heads up before I was gonna join.
Oh no, you're fine. I was the one that was like, snacks.
Honestly, how can you resist, though?
Right? Especially when it's popcorn. Love me some popcorn.
Popcorn is so nice because it's like just very like filling while also not being like too overpowering of a taste, which is hard to find.
Right. All right. I'm going to message my community here that the live stream is starting.
Oh yeah. Thank you so much for doing that.
Of course.
I'm just checking
All
on
right.
my end to make sure the volume's all good. Okay. All right. Are you okay to get started, or did you want to wait a minute for your community?
Um, looks like at least one person's reacted, so I think that should do it. I just basically just pinged the Discord real quick. We might have a special guest here at some point, but that's fine. By
Ooh.
special guest, I mean the cat.
Oh, I thought you meant the man with no shadow.
I mean, that would be cool. But yeah, all right,
I
cool.
think you mean terrifying.
All right, I think. Oh, here she comes. Hi, Smokey. No,
Oh my goodness. Oh, she's such a tease, just showing us the littlest, barest hint of
I
fur.
know.
Oh.
All right, well, we'll see if she comes over here. I'll make some space for her.
We might also get a visitor on my end. You probably won't. Well, hopefully you won't see her since my camera is off, but you will probably hear her. She is affectionately nicknamed the Squeakette because whenever I'm doing anything, she has to come over and squeak about it.
Oh gosh. Well, all right. I think we're good. Smokey unfortunately took off because I was moving things, and that's terrifying. So.
Oh, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come and speak with us today. I know so many of us are so excited, and I can't wait to ask you all about your writing process because I have so many things I'm curious about. But I guess let's start at the beginning. How did you get your start writing? Like, did you always know that you wanted to be a writer, or did you kind of just sit down one day and you're like, I think I want to write a story?
I got started very early in life. My first short stories I ever wrote were on MS-DOS Edit. So I'm like really dating myself here. So this is like pre-operating systems, like point and click Windows GUI. Yeah, I didn't have that. So I'm old as dirt, basically, is what I'm saying. But yeah, so I was on DOS Edit, which was kind of like this blue and yellow screen. And I started writing what I didn't realize was back then fan fiction. I was super into the Dragonlance Chronicles books when I was a little kid. I read them in first grade and just wanted adventures of my own. So I started writing short stories based off of them. And again, this was pre-internet, so I didn't really know about fan fiction. I was a little too young for it. But that's basically how it got started. And I really just enjoyed creating my own stories, my worlds. And so I just kept writing for the entire time I was growing up and just basically never stopped. I've always had a writing project going on.
That's so awesome. So then how did How to Survive Camping kind of become your first like huge project?
Well, I wouldn't say it's my first huge project. That my hard drive is just filled with failed novels, frankly. um,
I,
um, yeah, so there's a lot of stuff that came before How to Survive Camping, but I think How to Survive Camping became what really clicked because it's what got big on Reddit, basically. I started writing on No Sleep Reddit for just for something to do and as a way to get my writing out there and to interact with people. That was the big thing that I felt like I was kind of missing in life, is that I was writing all this stuff and nobody was seeing it. So No Sleep kind of provided an avenue for me to share my writing, and I was just throwing ideas against the wall, just putting all kinds of different stuff out there. Every time I had an idea, I'd write it down, I'd turn it into a short story, and then I'd post it. And initially, when I posted How to Survive Camping, I didn't really intend it as a series. It was basically going to be like one and done, but it really like clicked with people, and I think the character of Kate really resonated with people. And so I just kept going, and then like about halfway through what would become the first book, I realized that I had this much larger idea and this bigger story I wanted to tell. And so 4 books later, like, here we are.
that's so awesome. Someone in chat said, I love No Sleep, How to Survive Camping, and the rest of the stories on the website helped me through the pandemic. Aw. Um, so I guess at what point did you realize that these collection of kind of ideas and short stories were something that you wanted to turn into a novel and make a through line of a longer story?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I do want to like give a little shout out to the person that mentioned the pandemic though, because How to Survive Camping kind of came at an interesting time because it was right before the pandemic started, and then we were all just kind of trapped in our houses, and so the community I feel kind of became a lifeline for me and for a lot of other people. I think in that we had these stories to look forward to, and we could interact in the comments, and we had this sense of community when we were all isolated. So it was a very special part of my place, my heart for that reason. But interestingly, I think I started to get an idea that this might be something special when a reporter over in the UK reached out to me and wanted to do a little interview about how she was kind of getting through the pandemic and how these stories were sort of there for her and everything. So I talked to her on the phone and she wrote an article. And that was my first hint of like, okay, that was interesting. I've never had that happen to me before. And I wouldn't say that I really knew we were going to wind up here at any point. I've always kind of taken things as they happen and don't really look too far ahead. Um, I knew that I wanted to turn them into books because I have dabbled in self publishing and I wanted people to be able to have just a hard copy that they could look at and read. And so I knew I wanted to do that, but it wasn't much more than this is going to be kind of a tangible object for people who've read the series already. That was kind of my thoughts around it. And then my agent Maria reached out to me, and things just kind of fell into place after that.
Oh, that's so awesome. And I'm glad that it all kind of fell into place perfectly like that. So I feel like sometimes if you put too much stress and pressure on a story, it can start to feel overwhelming. So I'm glad it kind of just worked out so perfectly. That's awesome. How much did it change? So you said you were originally posting it as like short stories on No Sleep. So I wonder like how much did the content change going from those kind of shorter form content into kind of being all combined into one story with a through line? I see you
Yeah.
laughing. I'm excited for this answer.
I'm laughing because I spent a large chunk of today, like that's what I've been doing is working on that.
Oh.
Um, yeah, so interestingly, so sometimes when I look back on like how this was all written, I'm kind of amazed that like we got to the end in a coherent manner. um, because we're talking about 4 books that are being like written and published on a like every 5 days was my schedule. I had 2 pages worth of notes. That was it. I was not a planner. I knew what the major plot points were and I knew how the story was going to end, but everything else was kind of like I'd sit down and go like, all right, so what's going to happen this week and how does it tie into the main plot? Okay, we'll go with that. um so they did kind of fall into this monster of the week kind of format with this underlying connected plot line that kind of grew more visible as the stories went on. Unfortunately, like that doesn't work super great for a book. So, especially when for people that are like might not even know what Reddit is, I've had to explain it to a lot of my mother's friends, which is always fun.
Oh,
Um,
I bet.
yeah, yeah. Um, Yep. So anyway, so yeah, we have done a lot of work to get it into more of a novel type format where you just sit down and you read it straight through. And so it's like some of the things we focused on. First off, I will say that out of every book, like 20,000 words has gone missing. So, um, and that's because there's a lot of I call them Kate goes on an adventure chapters, which are a lot of fun, but they don't do anything to advance the plot. If I'm being honest.
Mm.
So a lot of those have been removed. We added some new chapters, which is always fun. I like writing the new content. And a lot of that was to kind of basically tie the plot in a little bit better, give more character development, especially around Kate's family.
Mm.
Um, and so the first passive editing that we usually do is the structural stuff, where we remove the chapters that don't contribute much, strengthen up the chapters that do, and then we move stuff around. And a lot of stuff will sometimes get pulled out of one book and placed into another. I
Oh.
liked to do a thing where I would like drop a hint of something and then like 3 books later reference it again, And that works when you have like a community that can say like, what the heck is this? And then someone else posts a link where it's like, hey, do you remember that thing that happened 2 years ago? Well, it wasn't 2 years ago. Felt like 2 years ago, more like 8 months ago, if we're being honest. And you don't really get that in a book. The other thing is that my editor told me that people are probably going to read this out of order. It's possible. And at the time, I was like, no, people don't do that. And so I pulled my friends, and I found out I was very wrong. um,
That's blasphemous to me. I could not imagine reading a series out of order.
most of the people from what they were saying, a lot of people say like, yeah, it was an accident, but we wanted to basically kind of recognize that that could happen. And so every book is a little more self-contained now. Events that are relevant to book two mostly happen in book two. We do have references back because it is a series. But for the most part, we try to keep everything kind of self-contained and focused on the main plot. And then, of course, some of the other lighter editing we tried to bring in a lot more character development with the side characters. So you'll see a lot more of Tyler, you'll see a lot more of Brian. Even the minor characters that didn't really have names got names. I had to name a lot of people. I couldn't just call people my aunt, my great aunt, because then my editor would be like, which aunt is this?
I did notice that the sheriff and the new sheriff never had names. They were just the old sheriff and the new sheriff. And I kind of like that because I didn't actually even realize it at first, but it was such a good way because there were so many characters for me to like keep them straight without necessarily like it never felt like it detracted from them as characters not having names. And I feel like because there were so many characters, it almost helped in a way.
Yeah, that was one of the ones where we left them as is. I think we do give the new sheriff a moniker, a nickname in book two, and I'll let readers find that. I can't say what it is because that would be spoilers. I have to remember it's the 21st. Book's not out till the 23rd in the UK, and then the 28th next week. So
Yeah, so I am going to focus on the first books. I don't want to spoil anyone who has not kept up with the postings on No Sleep or who hasn't read even the first book yet. So we'll talk about it in kind of vague ish terms to avoid any spoilers. But someone did have a question. The chapters that were added to the original compilation book run, will those be worked into the story as a full/real chapters instead of a bonus at the end?
unfortunately, no, we did not include those. And I think it's because the way the kind of conceit behind these books is that they're a guidebook, and Kate is writing them intended for consumption, so they are entirely from Kate's perspective. The bonus chapters um, are written in third person from another character's perspective, and I included them as sort of a thank you to the community for supporting me and buying the books when they were self-published and came out and everything. And I wanted them to have something a little bit extra since it was essentially the same content that was on Reddit. So I wanted them to feel like they could get something extra. Now that the books have kind of been rewritten into this, full story format, and there's additional content and everything, I didn't feel the need to include like the bonus chapters. That isn't to say like the bonus chapters couldn't come back someday. I don't know what other format I would make them available in, but it's probably just a discussion with my agent on what to do with them. I do have a newsletter, maybe there. I don't know.
That makes sense. So, something I was so impressed by when I read How to Survive Camping, The Man with No Shadow, was how well you juggled like all of these different characters, their importance in Kate's life, as well as all of the different monsters. Like, how did you kind of balance making sure that all of these characters and monsters got like enough screen time for like readers to connect with them and kind of understand without overwhelming anyone? Because I thought you did it so skillfully, and I want to know, what are your secrets?
Well, at least for the original Reddit post, since it was in kind of a Monster of the Week format, I could focus every post on whatever monster was going to be the feature for that one. So that one made that pretty easily. There were some exceptions that kind of popped up all throughout, such as the Man with the Skull Cup, because we all love him, you know. Um,
Oh yeah.
as far as like the format for the books, I will say that my editor had a really big hand in the pacing. Like that was the main thing that they focused on, was getting the pacing right and making sure that if we hadn't seen a character for a while, they might leave a note in there that says like, "Hey, can we, bring in this character instead of this one?" So I really credit a lot of the pacing that you see in book one, and the rest of the books are going to be coming out, with working closely with my editors. I've I've learned a ton from them, honestly, and I feel like it will change how I write books from now out.
That's awesome though, because I feel like working with someone who is like a professional in that space and who has so much experience with like kind of polishing books into the best form they can be and kind of seeing the heart of the story and how best to bring it out. I feel like learning from a person like that just changes how you view writing forever, and it's hard to go back after that.
It really does, especially because they're coming at it from a very different perspective than me. I'm writing these stories as I think of stuff, and I'm having fun with it, and I have ideas, and but they're looking at it from a reader's perspective, and something that makes perfect sense to me might not make sense to them, and they're going to flag that. And they're looking for places where it drags, and where a reader might lose interest in everything. And it's just a different perspective and a different set of expertise. And probably that the part of the publication journey that I've probably enjoyed the most is just being able to work with other people on this, instead of just kind of writing my post, throwing it out there, and hoping for the best.
It's so hard because when you're writing alone, and I imagine this was amplified while you were doing it during the pandemic, like it's hard to like really get the kind of feedback you're looking for and knowing how to improve and how to like kind of make it the best it can be. So that's hard writing alone for that long. So I'm glad, sounds like you and your editor have like similar visions for the story and you work well together.
Yeah, I've felt very, very thankful, and I was very nervous going into it because they were like, "Yeah, we're gonna clean it up, and we're gonna do some stuff," and I was especially nervous leading up to the release of the first book, because it was like, okay, was I too aggressive in changing things? Like, I had something that worked, and got me this far. Like, did I ruin it by all this editing? And at one point, I just finally had to tell myself, like, look, like, your editors know what they're doing. They've put out a lot of really good books. Saga Press, they actually have one of my favorite authors in horror with them right now. So, like, they know what they're doing, and I just need to trust that.
As someone who read the book, I can say it was excellent. So I don't think you need to worry anymore.
Yeah, the release of the first book went a long ways in helping with the silence those fears.
I bet. I absolutely adore the character of Kate. I love that she is very decisive. I love that. So I feel like a very common trope that you see with characters who like kill other people is often that they have to have this like moral debate and have this back and forth, and they have to present themselves as righteous. Meanwhile, Kate was immediately like, okay, yeah, he's got to go. I loved that. I was like, God, what a breath of fresh air. Were you how did you kind of come up with the character, and were you ever worried that she might come off as like off-putting to certain readers instead of like just incredibly strong and determined to do what she knew she had to?
Yeah, so interestingly, that's a fun story. You know how I said that earlier, that this was meant to be a one and done? So Kate's early ruthlessness was because I did not expect this to turn into as long of a series as it did, and so I was like wanted to give readers the impression that maybe the real monster is actually Kate. And so in the original series of the Post, Kate does some pretty awful things very early in the series. We dialed it back in the books, and I started to, as I was posting the series on Reddit, I started to realize like I need to dial Kate back. She's a little too much, and people like her, and they want to empathize with her, and they want her to do the right things. Like, it's always fun to read the comments of people being like, no, Kate, don't kill people, like, come on. and so,
No, Kate,
and so
that's bad.
and so the number of memes running through my head right now. That's good old internet brain rot for you. Yeah, so anyways, but and that kind of started Kate down her redemption journey of basically like, maybe I shouldn't solve my problems with violence. Like, maybe this isn't a normal thing for people to do. And we still see that. Like, that's still present in book one and throughout the series and everything, but it was a lot more pronounced in the Reddit series because she started out much worse than you see her now.
I thought you struck a really good balance because she never felt irredeemable while still having kind of that ruthlessness and that I can fix everything with my anger and just taking out whoever needs to be taken out. And I loved that so much.
I think having an unapologetically angry character is a lot of fun too, because there's just something cathartic about it.
It is, and I feel like we never get, especially female characters who have that as kind of their, not drive necessarily, but like when she struggles, like I think it's clear that she uses her anger as like a coping mechanism, awesome, often through her grief or her fear. And so seeing her fall back on anger, like it was just such a great character trait, and it felt so realistic for her, what she had gone through, what she was experiencing currently. So I feel like it worked so well and just made her all the more like sympathetic.
Yeah, and her anger is going to be one of those recurring things that happens throughout the series. Because one of the things I kind of want to also communicate with this was people don't, you talk about character growth and development, and you expect by the end of the book that the characters could have had these revolutions and everything. But I think in reality, it's a lot slower process. And even when you've had your moment and, and triumphed your character flaws, like they're still going to pop up sometimes. Like you're still going to fall back on old habits. And I think that's just human nature. And so you'll see her anger kind of popping up throughout the series, even as she struggles to kind of find a better way to balance how she reacts to things.
I love to hear that personally. And like you said, it just feels like a more realistic human reaction because no one just changes overnight, no matter what they experience. They're not just going to completely lose a flaw or weakness or something that they have always fallen back on. Uh, we
Yeah,
do
exactly.
we do have a question from Keystone Defiant. Are there any monsters that you wanted to include in the series but they didn't quite fit?
Gosh, yeah, I think the one that comes to mind most immediately, at least especially in book two, would be so part of my hesitation here is because okay, if there's ever like how to survive campaign like trivia, don't pick me for your team. Just don't do it. Because at this point I've done so much editing on the book and moved things around so much that I cannot remember what happens in what book anymore without looking. I have a little stack of all of my arcs like sitting next to my desk so I can look things up. Um, but the big one that I can think of is in the original series, the Rusaki, the Rusaki. The other thing I have to look up is which one's plural and which one's singular. I have all these notes that I don't have open right now. Um, and so, anyways, but they come back in book two in the original, and they're a pretty major plot point. But as we were going through and editing, it was not working out, and I was trying different things, and we were going through round after round after round, and so finally, my editor was like, "Look, I don't think we should have these characters in here. I think we should focus on." What is happening here with the lady in chains and the harvesters and everything, and maybe save some of this characters coming back sort of thing for a later book. And so that's what we did. I have some nostalgia for those chapters because there were some fun moments in there. I really liked them. But unfortunately, sometimes with the editing process, I mean, you do kind of have to make a tough decision and just say, like, okay, what do they call it? Kill your darlings. I love this passage, but it's just not working.
Yeah, that's always so hard, especially I imagine since this kind of started as a monster of the week, like having to kind of cut some stories or monsters that you must have like especially like resonated with just because they didn't, or not just because, but because they didn't kind of fit into the overall story. I imagine that must have been hard decisions. How did some of the more one-off monsters that did make it into the first book make the cut. Like I'm curious about the Russian, was it mermaids that would tickle you to death, or the children who would sell ice without wagons? Like, what was the determining factor that like those monsters made it in versus others?
I think it mostly had to do with the how they advanced the plot and how they tied back to the main plot. I would say for the Rusalka, it probably stayed in because it was pretty early in the book. We were trying to establish that Kate's campground is just full of weird monsters. As far as the children, this is not the last you've seen of the children.
Interesting, interesting. I did have some comments in chats I wanted to read to you as well because I wholeheartedly agree with them. Freya said, I really, really appreciate that Kate was also Ace. So few characters are like that, and I adore the representation. As someone who is Ace, 110% agreed, especially because it was never harped on as something that like made her like different or other. Like I liked very much how it was represented. I thought it was just very subtle and like clean and good. And then it didn't require this whole like internal debate. She was just like, yeah, this is what I'm about. So just putting my 2 cents in with that, I loved that. And then Keystone said, I always thought it was interesting because Kate already internalized the moral dilemma and ramifications, and the reader is left to catch up. So at the start, you feel like, whoa, Kate's kind of cold. And at the end, you realize the why behind it. Experiencing that mindset change is interesting and refreshing. So again, just absolutely agreed.
Yeah. So Kate being Ace, that's her perspective, like her worldview about being Ace. I know this is a big thing that a lot of people like to hear about with her. Um, it is very much kind of influenced on my own experiences, because I pretty much for most of my life, maybe this is a very narrow worldview, but I pretty much just assumed like everybody was just like me. And so I didn't really understand like, okay, Ace is maybe a little more niche until very late. And I actually had a really funny incident. I was camping and I was starting to realize like, oh, well, maybe not everyone is like this. Maybe this isn't the norm. And so I asked my friends, I'm like, all right, how many times like a week do you think about the other gender in like or whatever you prefer in that sort of manner? And it was like the record scratch happened. Like everyone in the campsite like turned to me, and like half the men were like, "I'm out. I'm not like I don't think I want to be part of this conversation." The other half were pulling up chairs, like, "Yes, ladies, please tell us."
I imagine that was a very definitely not awkward or embarrassing conversation for everyone.
Oh, it was hilarious. I've been camping with these folks for so long, and so we're all very, very close. And so that was kind
Aww.
of my moment of like, oh, okay, well, maybe this isn't normal for like everybody else. Like maybe this, I wouldn't, normal is probably not the right word for it. Maybe this isn't the mathematical term for majority. I can't remember. You know what I'm trying to say, though, right?
I do.
Yeah.
Oh, that's gonna bother me what the word is.
Maybe it is majority. Maybe I said it. Anyways, so I think that kind of influenced Kate's worldview, where she's just like, no, this just is like, it's not a big deal. It's not something I think about very often, and I see nothing wrong with it. And honestly, I probably just assume everybody else feels the same as me.
I liked that because it felt very realistic. Because it's like as someone who is ace, like that's not something I ever think about. It just is what it is, and then I move on with my life.
Yeah, pretty much.
So I just loved that. It felt like so realistic and refreshing to see. So you mentioned you go camping yourself with friends. Did you kind of draw on any of that experience when you were writing the series?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So interestingly, the camping I do nowadays is a lot different than the camping I grew up doing. um, the camping I grew up doing was like my parents going, well, the kids are old enough to walk and old enough to carry a backpack, so let's go spend 2 weeks in the Rocky Mountains. And this, remember, this was before cell phones. So we would just get up and leave civilization behind. My brother and I carried the sleeping bags, and all the light stuff. My parents carried all the food and the water and the tents and everything heavy. And yeah, we would just go climb mountains and stuff. And so that was my childhood. I didn't know that other vacations existed for a long time. When I found out like my classmates were going to this place called Disney or whatever, I was like, so you're not going in the woods and peeing behind a bush? Huh. So that was my childhood. So I saw a lot about camping and how things can go wrong and how you recover from them when help is nowhere nearby. And then I started going glamping with my friends, where you roll up, you unload your tent, and set up, and then you go park your car. And don't get me wrong, tons of fun. Things still go horrifically wrong. If you ever see a rule about flooding tents being flooded, I have lived that.
Oh.
Subsequently, I've also lived the one bed, two people trope, except it was with my close friend, and it was a cot, and it was awful. But there's no
Oh.
place to sleep because my tent had flooded.
Oh no. That sounds horrible. As if
Yep.
camping like outside in the woods isn't hard enough, sleeping on a cot with another person. Oh.
It was a rough night, very
Oh.
rough night. So yeah, so a lot of the stuff that you see in the camping that's more mundane stuff, that's probably from personal experience. There's a rule coming up in, I'm gonna grab it right here, book 3. It says cheap tents and pop-ups are not designed for weather. One strong breeze is enough to collapse or flip them, and that rule comes from a particularly windy day when I was walking back to my camp, and this pop-up comes flying through the air towards me, and I am like literally aloft, and it's like on its downward course, and so I'm like hitting the ground to avoid having this tent land on me.
Oh no.
And I get back to camp, and this was really close to the start of the How to Survive Camping series, and I'm like sitting down with my laptop, and I'm just like, I know what's going into the series.
I thought that was something that was so cool though, like interspersed among all of like the supernatural and the folklore. There were so many rules that were like super realistic camping things and that I wouldn't have thought of as someone who doesn't camp. So having that like realism interspersed with all of the folklore, especially in the rules, because you would have like, oh, don't forget to like dig a ditch around your tent in case of flooding, and then don't follow the lights. Like having them back to back like that was just so like cool. Like there was something really grounding about it that made everything feel more real and like it really could be set in our worlds. Like I feel like that added such a nice extra flavor of realism to all of it.
Yeah, like a lot of the mundane ones come from stuff I've lived. Like our camp had a tradition of, we called it trenching in the rain, because we'd have to get out the shovels and like redig our trenches while the common area was actively flooding during the first rainstorm. Happened every year.
Freya said, I love how don't follow the lights became such a big thing in the community.
It's just such a good one, and it's just so short and so sweet and fun. I actually, when I sign books now, that's what I write in the front of all the books. So if you do get a signed copy from me nowadays, I have started writing that. My mother keeps trying to get me to practice my penmanship, so it's not the neatest thing, but it's legible-ish.
I mean, whose signature is legible anyway? It's a signature. Come on now.
Exactly.
Did you have a favorite monster or a monster that resonated with you the most?
Oh man, that I get asked that one a lot, and it's hard to answer, and I'm pretty sure that my answers change just depending on how I feel at the moment. um, but the ones that usually make the list, obviously the Man with the Skull Cop, he was just a ton of fun to write. I love writing that character type where they're like, I probably shouldn't be interacting with this person. They're not great. They're kind of dangerous, but man, they're interesting. Love that character type. So he's a lot of fun to write. The other ones that I really have fun with, I adore the Harvesters. They are just like my Oh, they haven't shown up yet. That's book 2. Okay, well, I love the Harvesters, and you'll all get to find out why. And I also love the Lady with Extra Eyes. She's has a very special place in my heart.
Aw. I think the moment I knew that I absolutely loved the man with the skull as a character was when he was poisoning the campers who were giving out crappy candy. Like that's how he decided who he was going to ask to drink, and I was like, okay, I love this guy now. Like I'm sold. I'm sold. I already liked him, but now I'm all in.
Yeah, he does a little bit of some petty shit throughout the series. And you just love it because he just treats everything with such gravity. You know, he doesn't really show emotion or stuff, and at the same time, he's like just doing this stuff like petty retribution for small things, and it's just treated like as serious as anything else he does.
I adore that, and especially because he is like this very like ancient, could be incredibly dangerous character. The fact that he does like these petty little things is just like all the more like endearing somehow. It's just so good. I do have a question. So I was looking at the timeline of when all of these books are coming out, and they're fast. Like you had this one came out, was it last October?
Hmm.
And then book 2 is coming out very shortly, on the 28th. So in exactly 1 week, actually. And then the next is coming out in 5 more months. And then the next is coming out in May of next year. Uh, so I'm astounded. Like how do you have such a tight schedule? Like that's insane in publishing.
Um, it's been a little rough, I won't lie.
Oh,
Um, and part of it, okay, here we go. Here she is. She finally came back. All right, folks, this is Smokey.
a baby.
Let me see if I can get her to show you her face. Come here, girl.
Oh my goodness, she's so cute.
Yep, there we go.
Oh, it was worth it for those precious few seconds. Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, she'll probably prance around. Unfortunately, there's not enough space on this desk for her to like lay down and roll around and be cute. Make sure she doesn't
that's
spill my
fair.
water here.
Most desks just aren't big enough for that,
Yeah,
sadly.
yeah. My other one is, but I don't get a very good internet connection there, so we're in here. Okay, what was the question again?
The very tight timeline on your books
Right.
coming out.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, like I mean, they were already written, so I did have that in my favor at least. I'm not having to write them fresh. The other thing that has helped the timeline, the first one was a lot of like internal screaming the whole way through up until the publication date. But what has kind of helped with the others is now that I've gotten the first one out of the way and I kind of know what the editing process looks like, I can kind of draw on that experience. And so the second one was also a lot of work. It was pretty much every weekend. I was like, sorry guys, I won't be seeing my friends for a while because I'm going to be writing all weekend for like 2 months
Oh.
solid. Um, the third one, because I'd gone through this process twice now by that point, I did a pre-edit round, which was basically getting them out of the post format and into a novel format. And fortunately, like I said, I've learned a ton from my editors, and we got it. The first pass was close enough to what we needed that my editors moved up the publication deadline. Where they were like, you know what? I think we can get 2 in 1 year, and I said sure.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
yep, I'm hoping that we'll be able to keep doing that. I've done some stuff to kind of rejiggle my work-life balance a little bit, so that'll make it a little bit easier. I think the other thing that helped too is I mentioned in my author's bio that I have an MBA, and I mentioned that because I am proud of the fact that I got it, even though I have yet to use it in any meaningful capacity.
Isn't that just every graduate degree?
I have it. It looks pretty. Sometimes I get it out and look at it. um, But I did that through the Working Professionals program, which meant that I was working full time, and then in the evening I would go to classes, and on the weekends I would study and do homework, and I did that for like 4 years. So I kind of already
Gosh.
knew what it was like to have a crunch schedule like that, where you're trying to juggle like two major things. So when we started this whole process, I just basically told my friends like, "We're gonna do MBA schedule again. Bye. I'll see you in a couple years."
I can't even imagine how crazy that is because I feel like when authors talk about even having like 1 year between books coming out, it still sounds like a very hectic timeline. So even though you have like the stories already written, like the amount of editing that must go in, especially with deciding like which stories go in, how to kind of revise them so that they fit into like a longer format and how they fit the whole series instead of being one-offs, like that is still a ton of work even to do in 6 months or so. Like that's crazy. I have much respect for you.
I will say it has gotten easier and it is getting easier. And so um I feel like I'm at a much more sustainable pace. I'm able to do stuff again. So yeah. I had a feeling that kind of the initial like crunch of books 1 and 2 was not going to be a permanent situation. That's proven out. So we're in a much better space now.
Well, good. I'm glad. I hope you have some time for yourself and to get out and see friends and go camping. So, I want to hear a little bit about the second book. So, was the process of writing it and kind of combining the short stories into a longer format easier after you had kind of gone through this process already for the first book?
I wouldn't say it was necessarily easier. Because I think the second book was really when everything kind of clicked for me, like what the editors were trying to accomplish. I would say I felt a lot more confident about it. Like, okay, I know what we're trying to do, and yeah, okay, I just moved this chapter with the lady with extra eyes for the fourth time. For some reason, her chapters always were the ones that got moved around. It was crazy. Um, but I at least felt more confident that I knew what we were trying to do. It was really the third book was when things started to click, and when I sat down to the pre-edits, and I had a plane flight out to California that year when I was working on it. So I basically sat on the plane for like 6 hours and did nothing but edit for
Oh,
6 hours
wow.
solid, and then 6 hours back. Um, but that was when it really like just clicked in my brain of like, okay, here's what we're trying to accomplish and here's how we get there. I started making outlines. I finally started making outlines. They talk about people that, was it pantsing or planning or pantsing. With pantsing being you're just doing it by the seat of your pants. I was definitely a pantser for pretty much the entirety of my writing life. No more. I write outlines. Outlines are my thing
I
now.
I feel like that is such a thing once someone goes into the publishing industry. Like, even if they were a pantser before, I feel like I hear so many writers say, like, after they have their first book published or they work with an editor for the first time, that, like, oh no, now I'm definitely an outliner.
It's like, wow, this saves so much time to actually know what I'm doing when I go into it. Who would have thought?
uh, Duke of Bacon asked, I see this book is for fans of Welcome to Night Vale. Is that an actual influence or something simply inserted for marketing? I was a pretty big fan back in their prime.
It was inserted for marketing. I will be honest, I don't tend to listen to things very often. Yeah, so yeah, marketing did a lot of the comps and everything.
Yeah, I feel like, yeah, that's their job, and they're pretty good at it.
Oh yeah, I enjoy it, and I also enjoy like how they've been marketing it as cozy horror. Like that's just a fun little phrase to say.
It is. And yet it feels so fitting too because it's not like the sort of like psychological horror that will like just ruin your night. It's like more of a fun, campy, no pun intended, um fun kind of horror. Not always. Like obviously there are some very traumatic moments. I was not expecting a lot of some of the very dark moments that happened. So it is not always cozy, but I feel like overall, like it kind of has this sort of like fun to it, even while these very dark things are happening.
Right, and I feel like that makes it approachable because one of the things that I've heard from some folks is, well, I enjoyed it and I don't normally like horror. And I've heard that repeated a number of times. And I feel like kind of having this humorous approach and then also kind of Kate's very dry eh, wit of being your guide into these really dark places, I feel just makes it a little more approachable than something that's going to like give you sleepless nights. And I can think of some rule books in my life that's done that.
Did you kind of intend that when you were going into it? Like, did you always intend for there to be this humor that goes along with the horror? Or was that something that kind of naturally developed as you figured out Kate's personality?
I think it came along with Kate's personality. Like I knew she was going to go into it with that real dry wit and everything and kind of a cynical but also funny outlook on things. And so the humor just kind of came along for the ride. That is the kind of comedy like that I enjoy. I used to think like, oh, I don't like funny movies. Like that's not really my thing. And then years and years back, somebody recommended to me the Big Short, which if you haven't watched it, it's about the stock market collapse, but it's a very just dry topic sprinkled with just absurd, real cynical humor. And I watched it and I'm like, oh, this is my genre. This is my thing.
Very deep, dark, depressing content with a sprinkle of dry humor and
Yep.
sarcasm.
And I love it. So I'm not really surprised that it just immersed in Kate's personality because that is the kind of humor that I enjoy.
I love that. How did you get inspiration for a lot of the creatures who kind of appeared in the story?
Yeah, so some of them are inspired via folklore. As we saw with the Rusalka, some of them are directly from folklore. And then some of them have more folklore roots or inspiration. So, for instance, the Man with the Skull Cup is inspired by the Irish legend of Cuchulainn, who part of his story is that he, through the rules of like hospitality and courtesy, he has to eat something that he has taken an oath to not eat, and that dooms him. But he has to do it. And so that's kind of where the inspiration between the Man with the Skull Cup. He's offering you something that's going to be unpleasant. It's going to be awful. It's going to ruin your day. But because he's offering it to you, hospitality dictates that you must accept, even if it will harm you. So those are some of the like more specific folklore roots. Others are just snippets of things that I have picked up just from reading fairy tales and stories and folklore and everything and seeing these repeated themes over and over and over again. Like the dancers, dancing shows up in like so many different places. I think the specific one that made me latch onto it was just a little bit of Slavic folklore that I heard somebody repeat, and I was like, oh, that's interesting about dancing being used to cure things. Like, I should have some dancers in my campground. And so some of them are a little more general, and then some of them are just completely made up. So the Harvesters, which you haven't met yet, they started out as something completely made up, and then I kind of added in some of the folklore tropes. I'm trying to think of a lot of the completely made up ones are in book two. Yarn balls are completely made up, and I'm very excited for everyone to meet the yarn balls. The Thing in the Dark was another one, and that was just inspired by a literal pile of debris that was in the yard, the woods surrounding my yard in Connecticut that always gave me the heebie-jeebies.
I kind of love that.
Yeah. Yeah. It was just a really big pile, and like it was dark and kind of creepy. I don't know. It scared me.
Things are always scarier in the dark when you can't see what they are and they are unknown.
Oh, yeah. Man, the woods in Connecticut was scary.
How did you kind of decide, I guess, like how to balance like the existing folklore creatures with the creatures you made up? Or did you not really, not to say you didn't care, but like did you just kind of go with whatever you wanted?
It was completely haphazard, if I'm being honest. the original set of rules, again, this was not meant to be a big series. So, when the first post kind of hit it off, I was like, okay, people want to know like what the full list of rules are, so I'll sit down, I'll write a list of like 10 something, I think it was 15, something rule. Yeah, like I said, don't get me on your team for trivia. I'm bad at it. But
Me too.
I wrote, yeah, I wrote the first set of rules just kind of in an afternoon. And I wasn't really thinking ahead to the full series. And I put that out there, and then that became the official list that I had to live with.
So have you ever made any changes to that list, or has that always stayed the same since that initial list?
So for the initial series, no, it did not change. Now, as we are turning them into a book format, one of the things we're doing, you'll notice that like in the front of the book, there's how many, like I said, terrible at trivia. Don't get me on your team. How many rules did we put in per book? I think it was 10. All right, 10. All right, so we got 10 rolls in the first book. We're going to have 10 rolls in the second. We're going to have 10 in the third, so on and so forth. And it's going to be different rolls every time. So there's not enough rules to go around on all the books. So we are adding some. We're removing some that just don't apply because the Monster of the Week didn't make the cut. And then we are adding the new ones. And one of the things that we're trying to do is make all of the monster rules relate to monsters that you will be introduced to in the books. So if we look at the back of the arc here, there's a rule in here about jelly fungus. Finding jelly fungus forest is typically nothing to be concerned about. If you find large multiple patches, however, do not go into the forest alone and do not leave the light of your campfire after the sun sets. They hunt at night. So you'll get to find out what those are.
I'm glad I didn't do this too far out from when the book releases, because I really want to read this now already. I would have to die if I had needed to wait more than a week, I think.
It's gonna be fun. There's some of my favorite creatures in book 2, and I don't know. You ask me this again 5 months down the road, and I might be saying the exact same thing about book 3.
But that's good that you have something you love in each of the books, because I feel like that always comes across to readers. And so when the writer is having a good fun time, and when the author loves like the creatures in their book, or like just the content, like I feel like it just always makes it shine so much more. So I feel like that's still valid.
Yeah, I do love this series. Like, it has just been so much fun to write, and just the community that's grown up around it is like the first time through. It was like, man, it was the comments. I lived for the comments. They were wonderful. So yeah, it's been, I don't know, probably the best experience of my life, honestly.
That's incredible. I'm so glad. Oh, do you have, unrelated to writing, sort of, do you have any favorite memes that the community has made about your books?
So my favorite meme was whenever, okay, so people obviously were shipping Kate and the Man with the Skull Cup. Like, love it. Just love that. And so invariably in every post, well, maybe not everyone, but most of them, somebody in the comments would talk about Kate and her boyfriend, and the conceit of No Sleep is that everything is true, and so that when you interact with the people commenting, you're basically interacting as the person who wrote the post. So I would be posting as Kate. Side note, it's really interesting when my mother calls me, she's like reading my arc, and she's like, yeah, I just read this section where you were fighting this one monster, and then she like stops herself and is like, when Kate was fighting this monster. I'm like, I'm not sure what this is saying, Mother. I'm a little concerned that you're getting us mixed up. But anyways, I was answering these comments as Kate, and whenever I saw something that was basically people as shipping her, I would just reply with like the little disapproval text emoji. Every single time, I just had it hotkeyed and just there we go.
That. I love
it
that
was a ton
so
of fun.
much. I feel like that would be Kate's response.
Yep. Like, I'm not even gonna dignify this with a reaction. I'm just gonna stare at you disapprovingly.
Someone in chat, Freya said, "I remember that."
It was fun, and like, if you haven't read the acknowledgments of book 1 yet, I recommend you at least check out the last paragraph.
Will do. Keystone asked, do you feel the setting of Goat Valley Campground itself to be a living entity alongside its inhabitants?
Hmm. That's an interesting question because I feel like there's two ways you can answer that. And living entity, as in uh, within the world of Goat Valley Campground itself, yes, and I hesitate to get too much into why I say that because I have to be mindful of spoilers. I used to be so bad about that. My parents, oh my god, my family would get so mad at me because I spoil everything. So I'm trying to be
No!
better about it now that I'm an author. But as far as like a living entity, like in terms of the community and everything, I've always had a very clear picture of like where the series was going and the setting and everything. Um, so I don't know how much of it changed with other people's perceptions and influences. I would say it's more like it just got bigger than just myself. It wasn't just something that existed in my own head, but then it started to exist in with everybody else's minds as well. So living in the sense of it just grew and expanded to encompass everybody else that was invested in it.
That makes total sense, and I'm excited to see in future books maybe hints of more why you would say yes, but you don't want to expand because spoilers. So, very curious to find out. Sort of speaking of, with the second book coming out in a week, what was your favorite thing? Obviously, without spoilers, that took place in the second book. Like your favorite kind of scene or monster or character.
Gosh, so I will say that in book two, we get to meet Sword. And what happened was is that book two, these are very seasonal books, and so book two takes place in like the spring and summer. And so in the first draft, Kate was, she just kind of vaguely references these big events. And my editor was like, we got to give some flavor to these events. Like, we got to give them names, we got to give them purposes. And I was finally like, okay, I'm on this call with him. I'm like, I have to confess. Like, I have to come clean and tell him the truth. The big event that gets referenced is inspired by this medieval reenactment group I'm part of. And he's like, his face just lit up and he's like, yes, we need to do that. He's like, we need reenactment jokes. And so I'm like, okay,
Yes.
all right, we're just gonna lean into that. And so Sword was created. I pulled my friends for different goofy names. Somebody came up with the Seasonal War of Regional Divisions, aka Sword. And I was like, oh, that's too long. I don't think the editor will go for it. The editors loved it. So that's what we went with. And so I had so much fun writing all of these stupid little one-off jokes about just medieval reenactment culture.
I love that so much.
Yep. It doesn't like it kind of it integrates with the main plot line. It doesn't really I don't think the medieval reenactment group really takes it over. There's some fun scenes with them and everything, but it doesn't really become like the focus of the story. It's more of kind of this colorful backdrop, and I had a ton of fun just putting stupid stuff in there about like aging cheese and tournaments and kings and such.
I feel like that's the type of stuff that like really gives like a book personality though, because you can just tell how much fun the author is having. And again, it kind of adds to that humor of like there are these like very dark, serious things happening, but also what about medieval reenactments though?
Yeah, and it's just all these people like carrying on their weird little lives in the background while Kate's like, I gotta deal with the monsters. You'll have fun, like doing your little dances and your little dresses.
I love that so much. Oh my gosh. Were those like in the original stories at all, or is that completely new to the novel form that's coming out next week?
That's completely new. Like I said, I always just kind of kept it vague, like, oh yeah, we're dealing with a big event. But it was really when I finally told my editors the truth about what that big event was inspired by, that they were like, nope, we love this, let's do it.
That's excellent. So, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, so I always like to end with two different things. Just any words of advice for anyone who wants to get into like publishing or becoming more of a serious writer, or and also anything you would like to promote coming up.
Yeah, so for the first one, I would say, as far as becoming a serious writer, like don't be serious about it. I told you all that earlier in this. I kind of always just took things as they happened, and I think that really kept the stress and the pressure down. Like I never really put a lot of like I have to succeed or I will be a failure forever and ever and ever on me. It's my mantra has always been like work hard, do my best, make sure that whatever I put out there is the best and that I can make it. And whatever happens, happens, And especially with a field like this where I feel like luck does have a component, like I feel like that's the most you can do. And so if you love writing, like just keep writing. Don't take it too seriously. Do what makes you happy and what you enjoy doing, because even if that lucky break doesn't happen, then you're still enjoying your life and you're still enjoying the things you make. And I am kind of glad I had that foundation before I kind of went on this more serious publishing journey, because I think it would have been a lot more stressful if I didn't. So the second thing, as far as stuff that I want to promote, I will say if you go to bonniequinn.com, I do have some events coming up. They will be listed there. I'll continue to listen there. You can also sign up for my newsletter there, so you can kind of keep track of everything I'm up to. All of my events are currently in Columbus right now because that's where I live. I don't know if I will travel. Part of that is just to kind of like take the opportunities as they come up. And then obviously Lady in Chains comes out next week. If you haven't pre-ordered, this is like your last chance. Otherwise, I can't wait for you all to see it.
I'm so excited. Well, that is absolutely incredible advice, and I think much needed with how much pressure there can feel as a writer, like to be published or to get into the publishing industry. So thank you so much, and thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy, I imagine, schedule with two more books coming out this year and a book coming out next week and all your events coming up. So I really appreciate you taking the time. Thank you so much. This has been
absolutely
so fun.
This has. Thank you so much. I've enjoyed talking.
I'm so glad. Thank you so much. And I wish you all the best. I cannot wait until the second book comes out.
Me neither.
All right. Well, I hope you take care and have a great night.
All right. You too.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
Oh my god, I'm always so awkward at how to end it. Oh my god, she was even cooler than I was expecting. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. Holy crap! I knew she was going to be cool, but holy crap, I did not anticipate just how much. Actually, let me just go ahead and switch over to the just chat and screen. That was so cool! Oh my gosh. She was so, like, fun to talk to. Like, her process just sounded so interesting. I still can't believe, like, I can't imagine how much work it must have taken to go from... Oh! Keystone, thank you so much for the follow! I hope you had a fun time. I'm so sorry. I felt like it took me a minute to get to your first question, but it was so fun having you here. You had such excellent questions. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, I'm still like... I always get so anxious during the author interviews because the authors are always so cool, and I always feel like so like I don't want to be a fool. I don't want to be a fool. Arik, thank you for the sub, the gifted sub to Keystone. Sorry, I'm still stumbling. I can't even imagine like how much work it must take to turn like short stories into like novels, and especially on such a tight deadline. Like, oh my gosh, I feel like she was definitely underselling herself, because holy crap, that takes a lot of skill and dedication. And that, oh my gosh, oh, she was so cool. I feel like I keep saying that. I don't have good synonyms. What are other good synonyms for very cool? came for the Bonnie, stayed for the Crow. You did so good. Oh my god, thank you so much. That means a lot to me coming from someone who joined us for the first time tonight, because I always worry about how I do on the author interviews, because I know I get so nervous, and I always worry about whether the questions I'm asking are, like, interesting enough, or if I'm, like, hogging the space, because, like, I have questions I want to ask, but also I want to make sure that we get in questions from chat, of course. So oh, my heart's still pounding. That was so fun! Thank you for choosing to interview her also, Crow. I know I've been bothering you with this since the start of Talk Story. Not at all. She was very fun to talk to and very cool. I just hadn't had, like, I feel like for so long I was just so slammed with reading books, because I was organizing the book club at my company, so I just felt like I was hard pressed to, like, get in more reading time, because I'm such a slow reader. So I was never opposed. I just was worried about finding time. But now, of course, I have nothing but time. I think you're 0 for every episode as far as sounding like a fool goes. Okay, but you've been here a while. You're obligated to say nice things about me. That's how this works. That's how this works. New Talk Story to me. Drinking game, take a shot every time Crow says cool. You're gonna pass out within, like, 5 minutes, Arg. Oh, I guess I should do, like, my official outro for when this becomes, like, a podcast episode. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Talk Story to Me. I had so much fun talking to Bonnie Quinn. Absolutely check out her How to Survive Camping series. I'm not sure exactly when this episode will be going live, but her second book in the series comes out on April 28th, 2026. So be sure to pick it up. I am so excited to read it. The first one was such a joy, and I'm excited for more. Until next time, bye! Okay, official outro done. Oh man, you did great. You had great questions, kept the flow going, had no major downtime, and engaged chat. That's way harder than anyone ever thinks until you're behind the mic. I'm very impressed. Oh my god, you're so sweet, Keystone. Holy crap, thank you so much. I'm doing my best. I just love writing. I love getting to talk about writing and books that I enjoy and just all of it. So, just very fun. Hello! Welcome in, Zomatist. I hope I pronounced your name right. Welcome in. We just wrapped up our author interview with Bonnie Quinn, who was incredible. The only obligation I can think of here is shilling for you. Cease! None of that. We talked about this. We've discussed this. Cease. I do think I'm going to take a quick bathroom break. I think I'm going to continue streaming. I just gotta figure out what. I had originally planned to do our charity reward of a karaoke stream tonight, but because I'm still not feeling 100% better, I think I'm going to save that for another night. So maybe some more Final Fantasy VII? Suka! Oh my gosh, it's been a while! How have you been? Oh, writing talk. Me and my friends are also writing a comic book. It has some stuff from Bible, fantasy combined with sci-fi. We are making a really mixed universe. Ooh. Oh my gosh, Samatus, thank you so much for the follow! That's so sweet, thank you! It is always so fun seeing, like, science and fantasy and religion all mixed together in one universe. I love seeing how they kind of bounce off one another as well as, like, coexist differently in the world. I love that. Oops, Caps! I've been good. Finally hit a milestone on Twitch. That's so awesome! What milestone did you hit? Congratulations! Oh my god, that's so exciting! 200! Oh, fuck yeah! Oh my god, congratulations, Suka! That's awesome! I'm reading a novel that does that, only it draws a lot from Scientology in a mocking way. I feel like that's the only way to talk about Scientology. That's so cool. Oh my gosh. That sounds like such a fun project. I wish you guys all the best on making it. I am going to take a bathroom break, and then when I come back, I will hopefully have decided what I'm going to stream. I'm thinking Final Fantasy VII. Some more of that, because I feel like it's been a minute, and last we stopped, I had so many questions. Oh my gosh, Suka, no worries. This is very chill. Just come by when you can, when you feel like it, and we'll be here for you. No pressure. All right, I will return very shortly. BRB.